What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Enjoying the Review. I'm your host, Incomparable Zach Jones, and on today's show, I will be reviewing and recapping the long-awaited return of Severance Season 2. That's right, so Severance Season 2, Episode 1, entitled Hello, Miss Cobell. Before I get into things, guys, I want to remind you to please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Costs nothing, helps me greatly in the algorithm. Leave thumbs up, positive reviews, comments, all that good stuff. And if you like, you can find me on social media on Twitter and Blue Sky at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. All right, guys, let's get into it. So I got to say, I'm a little lucky in that the wait for Severance 2 has not been as bad for me because I think the first season came out in early 2022, and I heard, everybody saying like great things about it, but I actually did not get around to watching it until I want to say like late 2023. So it's just been a little over a year for me to wait for season 2. And man, I thought everything people were saying about season 1 was right on. I really loved season 1. I thought it was one of the better shows I had seen in quite a long time. In fact, I think I would probably rate it like 9.5 out of 10. Like, I thought it was really, really strong. And, it went out on that cliffhanger that definitely, made me excited to come back. And I actually rewatched, just to kind of remind myself of everything, I rewatched season 1 coming into this episode. And I got to say, just, this show, strong premise right off the bat, a great degree of mystery. I think there's also some social commentary buried in here. So I wanted to talk about season 1 just a little bit before I get into season 2. Just the idea of severance to begin with, this idea of separating yourself into, two people, and, the work you has their memories, outside you has your memories. Because, it's intriguing because, I can't help but think, like, if Severance was available in real life and, like, I could separate myself, from my crummy day job, I would seriously think about it, even though I would be condemning my innie to a hellish existence. I mean, it would be awful, but, like, I can't lie, that would be super compelling for me to just go to work. Boom, I'm out again. For me, no time is, passed really. Um, I don't. What do you guys think? Like, even though it would be unethical for you out there that do not like your job, wouldn't it be very tantalizing to sign up for Severance? I think it would be. The other thing I found really intriguing is but also the element of the show that I think could in the end disappoint me the most is just the weirdness of the stuff that goes on at Lumen. It's very intriguing. It almost reminds me, I don't know if you guys have ever played the BioShock video game, but for those who haven't, the premise of that game is that there's this enigmatic guy. He founds this underwater city that's meant to be this laissez-faire libertarian paradise. And of course, you as a character end up, your plane crashes, you go to this place, and you find out that it, all went to hell. And it's kind of like a commentary on libertarianism and capitalism, things like that. And I think that is kind of present in the show as well. You got this enigmatic guy, this Keir Egan, they talk about, who founded Lumen. And, he's got kind of all these cultish followers, and he's got all these, principles and everything. And, I think there's a commentary in the show about kind of worshiping capitalism. We saw in season 1 that Mrs. Cobell basically worshipped him as a god. She had an altar to him. And when she got fired from Lumen at the end of season 1, she felt like her God had forsaken her, basically. And so I think it's very interesting from that point, from a social commentary point of view. Now, the reason I say that that kind of stuff is also my biggest concern about the show. Is I could see we get to this end of the show and they're either like, oh yeah, they were like, um, the whole thing was this cultish thing to working for the devil basically or something like that, which I would kind of roll my eyes at. And also there's like the whole thing with like some of the paintings they have and like the goats and stuff kind of feed into that devil kind of imagery too. Um, I hope that's not what the show ends up being. Is like a real like supernatural type twist. I don't think I would enjoy that as much, but I could definitely see it going there. But then also I could see the show really never uh, answering a lot of the questions raised and just being like, oh, this is all kind of abstract and it's up to the viewer to kind of put in what they think it all means. And I think that can sometimes be lazy storytelling, just always leaving it up to the viewer to like, well, we're just going to put up a bunch of abstract stuff out there and people will either think it's brilliant or it's not, and they'll bring all the their own stuff into it. I don't know. I don't always like that. To me, sometimes it comes off as lazy. But hey, that's in the future to find out. But so far, the ride going along for the ride of this show, I like it very much. Just the premise awesome. The mystery element of what's actually going on is awesome. Um, Lots of good social commentary. Also, just the idea. I think it says a lot about work and how corporations treat people. Um, I also have a theory that what's going on there could all be more of just a social experiment because you just see how much the management, messes with the employees and puts them through the ringer, and it does kind of seem like a social experiment to a large extent as well. So I could see that being maybe a twist as well. So yeah, guys, let's get into season two. This episode, again, off to a strong start. I think I'm going to give it like a solid, like, it's always tricky rating television episodes, but I think I would give it like a 7.5 out of 10. I think it was pretty strong. Set up some intrigue and going forward, threw a few curveballs at us, which I appreciate. So yeah, let's get into it, and I'll comment as I go along. So we open with Marc coming back to work. The elevator opens up, and so coming off of season two, I guess I should recap that a little bit. So Marc, Helly, and Irving got to go outside. Dylan went in the control room and he flipped the switches that allowed them to go in their Audi's place. We found out that Helly is actually a descendant of the Egans, which I think her full name is like Helena Egan, so that's interesting. We found out that Marc, his wife, who died in season one, was in the outside world her name was Gemma, but she was in Lumen. Her name was Miss Casey. So like that was the big mystery. And at the end of season one, he just yelled to his sister that she's alive. And that was the big cliffhanger. And then Irving. So this was also interesting. We found out that he was his Audi was painting a bunch of pictures of the dark hallway that Miss Casey was sent to in season one after they had no further use of her as like the therapist character. So it seems like there was some bleed in memories in Irving's case, and also while he was at work, he had some of those episodes where like the black globs were coming in, and we found out that was the paint he was using, his Audi was using. So that's interesting also. And also, I had forgotten this until I rewatched season one. But Irving, we found out that he was in the like Navy or something military, but he also had names of everybody, like names and addresses of everybody who worked at Lumen on the Severance floor. So it almost seems like maybe he has some sort of like mission to find out what's going on. Um, so that's interesting, I thought as well. Um, so yeah, Marc, the first thing on his mind when he gets back is like trying to find Miss Casey. So he runs through a maze of hallways, and I kind of like how and they did this in the first season too. You're just like, what's the layout of this place? It seems very much like a labyrinth, and so he's running through just these hallways, left, right, around, and getting lost and stuff. But he eventually finds the wellness room, but it's empty. It's completely empty. Um, no one's in there. I found this interesting, and I'm curious what you guys think. In the background, as he's in that room, we see out in the outside hall, there's a man in a suit briefly, and we don't know who that is. Do you guys have any guesses? I certainly don't at this point, but it was, a little nugget that I found interesting. So Marc walks back to the MDR office, which now has 3 new employees. An old man named Mark W., a woman, which we'll find out later, her name is Gwendoline Y., and a Spanish-speaking man who I believe on IMDb his character says it's Darius, but I don't know if they actually name his character in the show. If they did, I missed it. Maybe they did. So Mr. Milchick walks in the room with a bunch of balloons that have Marc's face on them, and he welcomes him back. Milchick then escorts Marc to the management room. And okay, this is one of the most interesting reveals in this episode, I think. It's revealed that 5 months have passed since the end of the previous season. Supposedly. And I say supposedly because that might have happened. That might be true. But I also have a feeling that Milchick might be lying to him. And not as much time has passed. But we shall see. I think that's part of the mystery. Milchick introduces Marc to Mrs. Wong, who is like a teenage girl who appears to be Milchick's assistant. I think we find out later she's like deputy manager, which I think was Milchick's position in season 1. And so now it's also revealed that Cobell is no longer with the company, and Milchick is now the top manager of the Severance floor. Milchick says that the others, meaning Helly, Irving, and Dylan, were not fired. He says that Helly R and Irving B both successfully made contact with people on the outside, and that Dylan's Audi learned what happened after the fact. Milchick says that the 4 of them have achieved international... Okay, this is also interesting. The 4 of them have achieved international fame and have become the face of severance reform. And he hands Marc a newspaper that has a picture of the 4 of them in a parade and a headline that reads, "Innies blow the whistle." So my prediction is that this is all fake. That this newspaper article is fake, and the notion that the 4 Audis are now super famous is fake. Now that's just a guess, because my feeling is that Marc's sister, like, he just says she's alive. He doesn't say Gemma's alive. But I think that would have, like, maybe they would have said something about that, rather than just keeping it to themselves. No, maybe not, because maybe they would be afraid that they would hurt her or something. So I guess there's possibility that they wouldn't have, but I don't know. I have a feeling that this is made up, this whole newspaper article. Now we do see, at the end of season 1, Helly made her speech in front of the people, so there is a chance that that got out, and it did lead to this in reality. But I don't know. I'm skeptical. I'm definitely skeptical. Milchick expresses guilt for locking Marc and the others in the MDR room in season 1. And he says the fact that they allowed somebody as sadistic as Cobell, to do what she did and be manager and everything. Milchick tells Marc that they believe Cobell was at her sister's house, because this was another, thing he was wondering about. Because she developed an erotic fixation on him and had plans of getting him and his Audi in a weird, like, throuple type relationship. And so Marc, of course, is kind of perplexed. He's like, what? But then he quickly moves on, and, he wants to know where his team is. He wants to get back with the old gang. Milchick says they tried for weeks to get them back, but they wouldn't agree. He says they told them of the reforms, but it wasn't enough. Milchick says that Marc's Audi insisted on coming back and begged them to let him back right away. The whole... So, like I said, I'm skeptical that the whole 5-month gap happened, but it might have. I mean, obviously they had time to, rip out the wellness center and everything. So it could very well be true. But so far, this is like the one thing I'm most curious about, I think. Marc says that he wants to hear it from them, that they refuse to come back. And Milchick says that's not possible. So Marc goes back to the office, and his new coworker says that they showed up about an hour before he did, and that they used to work in a different MDR office. So this is also interesting, the idea that Lumen has plants all over the place with other, severed floors as well. So Marc's female coworker, again, we'll find out her name is Gwendoline, grills him about what he saw on the outside. She's like, did you see this guy? He's like, oh, not really. He says he was briefly outside, but didn't really notice this guy and whatever. So Miss Wong shows up with the red ball. Of course, this is also in season 1. Milchick they did this where they tossed the red ball around, and whoever had the ball had to talk about themselves. So they do that here. She says that it's her first day as deputy manager, and mentions that before this job she was a crossing guard. The old man, Marc W., asked her why she was a child, or why she is a child, and she said it's because of when she was born. So, a little humor there. Marc W. says he's from the MDR department of Branch 5X. And he said he worked with Gwendoline Y. He thought he would be permanently retired when his branch shut down, so he thinks this is a nice surprise that he's working here. And, there are people like that. So, sometimes you see, like, older people working and you feel sorry for them, because it's like, you shouldn't have to do that. You should be able just to enjoy life now and be retired. But some people just, like, love working, and like they want to be doing something and feel useful. And so, like, there definitely are those older people that just love to work. While trying to think of something to say to the group, Marc S. has a quick flash of Gemma. And he remarks that he made 4 new friends today. But Miss Wong reminds him sternly that she is his supervisor and not his friends. So he's like, okay, then I made 3 friends today. So the next day, Gwendoline asks Marc if if the figures in their perpetuity wing move at all, because apparently the figures in their perpetuity wing are animatronic and move around, like, I guess, like, Chuck E. Cheese characters or something. And Mark says no, that they're just still. And she says that's probably because this branch is older than hers. The Spanish man mentions that like they were poor and that in theirs the figures were made out of like broomsticks and plates. He also says that instead of an elevator, they just used ropes, which is interesting. I kind of want to see like I guess that version of Severance, see their low rent office and how that works. It is interesting though, like the notion that there are several other offices, but then again, like then it's like, could all these guys be plants and they're just telling him this, and like really they're actors also messing with, and like like there is no other plants, that could also be the case. Like I said, they seem like laboratory mice, where it almost does seem like a social experiment where like management is just always messing with them, so you don't really know what's going on. Marc writes a note on a post-it and folds it. Mark W. mentions that his old team were a bunch of dirt bags and they never met quota, which is just a funny way to like characterize like bad workers as dirt bags. So Mark puts the note in Mark W.'s jacket pocket because, as we remember from season 1, the elevators have code detectors where if you have anything written, they're going to detect it and the person will get in trouble. So the next morning, Mark shows up and Milchick is there reading the note out loud. And the note is basically blatantly frames like Mark W. calling Milchick milkshake and like, saying a bunch of bad stuff for him. And so everybody knows that it was a frame job, that Mark S., was trying to frame Mark W. So Mark yells at Milchick that he wants his old team back and tells him, what part of that don't you understand? So angrily, Milchick takes his badge and says that he is revoking his status as department chief and giving it to Mark W. Milchick says he will now be confined to the office and have to give updates on his work progress. So Mark pretends that he did something to the kitchen, and when they go to look, he runs out of the office. So he runs into Milchick's office, the management office, and he quickly plugs in the speaker that we saw in season 1 that Cobell used to talk to the board. So, of course, he doesn't know for sure if the board on the other side can hear him, but he begs the board to give him his old team back. Milchick comes in and escorts Mark to the elevator. And when it opens back up, there's now like a huge like painting of Keir Egan. I forget exactly what was on this painting. It was like him, I think with a sword or something, and then there was like 4 men like buried up to their necks in dirt or something. And like it mentions that the painting is called what is it, like Keir pardons his betrayers, which is interesting. The whole Egan thing, it intrigues me, but I have no idea if it's ever really going to pay off in any way whatsoever. So he gets out, and then the elevator dings again and opens up, and Dylan steps out. Dylan asks Mark if their plan worked, meaning when he held the switches, and he says yes, it worked, and he tells Dylan about like the new people, employees that showed up. Now the elevator opens again, and Irving comes out. And then, so they start heading to the office, and we see Mark kind of look back, and he's like, visibly like hoping that Helly's going to step out. And sure enough, the elevator dings and Helly steps out. So they hug, and Marc notifies her that it's been 5 months, um, supposedly, since everything went down. So they go to the office and they find out all the new people are gone. Irving goes, I don't know if it was the bathroom or the break room, but he goes in the room and he says he needs a minute. Dylan wants to know what happened to the others when they were in the outside world, but Marc doesn't want to say anything because he thinks that management is listening to them. Helly happens to notice that the security camera in the office is gone. So then Miss Wong shows up and says that Milchick is waiting for them in the break room. Of course, in the break room in season 1, that's where they had to go, and they had to repeat that whole thing saying they were sorry until he believed them, no matter how long it took. In the break room, now the break room, seems like a pleasant space with places for them to sit. So they go to this break room, and they are shown this video that basically has this. It's a cartoon. It's claymation figures that basically recreate what they did in season 1, including Marc kissing Helly. And the cartoon makes them out to be heroes that led to the better conditions at Lumen, and showed the management at Lumen all the problems that were going on, and they led this revolution, and it made Lumen change its mind and all this stuff. Milchick tells the group that he does not want to be their jailers, and so now they, as innies, will get to choose whether or not they want to stay and work or leave. And he's like, by the end of the day, if you start working, I'll assume you want to work here. If not, you can go. But the one thing that was unclear to me, is that something that goes for every day, or do they have to make this? It seemed like they had to make that decision like on this day. So like, does it really help them if tomorrow they're like, oh no, this is terrible, I do want to leave it? Are they like, nope, you're locked in, But also they all seemingly like pretty easily decide to stay. And really, I would think like them knowing how bad it is would want to leave. Like, I know why Marc is more compelled, but it seems like it would take more to convince the others than it does. So Milchick tells them that there are no more microphones or cameras on the severed floor. Again, is that true? I'm dubious, but maybe. Marc tells the group about so Milchick leaves, and like, I guess they're convinced enough that they're not being listened to here. Marc tells the group about Miss Casey, about how she was his Audi's wife, thought to be dead. Helly, this was interesting. Helly lies and says that she was just in a boring apartment watching TV. So she doesn't let them in on the fact that she, is rich. She's an Egan, all that stuff. Irving doesn't want to tell the group what he saw, and he leaves the break room. So they go after him. Dylan says that he'll go to talk to Irving and tells the other two to go back to the office. So on the way back to the office, Marc tells Helly that he never had feelings for Miss Casey, but he says that the outside Marc and him are the same-ish person, and so he feels he should try to get Miss Casey out. Now, Helly strongly disagrees with that. She's like, basically like, screw the outside me. Like, we don't owe them anything. And she kind of it seems like she has contempt for the outside her, which makes sense after, all that she went through in season 1. And like her Audi even said, like, I'm a person, you're not, in season 1. So like, her feelings are definitely understandable. She says, however, that Miss Casey is one of them, so she will help Marc. She also wants to help get Miss Casey out. So Irving tells Dylan about Bert, about how he saw Bert, and Bert was happy with, outside Bert was happy with a partner, a husband, who knows. Irving tries to walk through the exit door, but Dylan won't let him. Irving tells Dylan about the paintings, about the dark hallway paintings. Irving seems like he doesn't want to go on living without Bert. But Dylan, kind of puts his arms around him, tells him he needs him. And it looks like he gets through to Irving. I think he even mentions too, like, we can get to the bottom of what the paintings were, the dark hallway and all that stuff. So Miss Wong shows up and says that Milchick would like to see Dylan in his office. So in the office, Milchick's computer still says, "Hello, Miss Cobell," and this seems to really bother him. So he's like, trying to get on with like their IT department or whatever and get that changed to him. And of course, that is, the title of the episode, "Hello, Miss Cobell." So that's where that comes from. Milchick tells Dylan his wife's name is Gretchen, his outside wife, and that she wanted him to know. And then Milchick shows Dylan that he has plans to make a room where he can visit with his outside family. But he tells Dylan not to tell the others because they are single and he doesn't want them to resent Dylan. This seems suspect to me because even though the others are single, like, they probably do have people I'm sure Marc would like to visit with his sister, and Helly would probably like to visit with other people in her life. And also, like, Dylan just very briefly got to meet like his son in episode 1, but I almost wonder if they're going to hire like actors to come in and pretend to be his family, but they aren't really, or something along those lines. It definitely seems suspicious. So the episode ends with the four of them coming back into the office and getting to work, moving the mysterious numbers. Again, who knows what that's all about, or whether they'll ever answer what they're actually doing with the whole moving the scary batches of numbers into their compartments and all that. But then at the very end of the episode, on Marc's computer screen, there's a very quick flash of an image of Gemma / Miss Casey. So yeah, again, some good mystery setup in this episode. I'm very interested to see like what happens when they track down Miss Casey and all that. I think that's the biggest kind of, after the cliffhanger of season 1. I think that's what everyone, like most people, are most interested in. And it seems like the whole black hallway thing, if they're investigating that, would also help lead to finding her, since that's where she went. So that makes sense. And but again, I am interested to know if my suspicion is correct about the newspaper being fake and all that. Maybe not. And like the whole time gap thing too, I kind of wonder about. What do you guys think of the revelations in this episode? I'm very curious. And what do you guys think of this episode overall? Like I said, I liked it very much. I'm intrigued to see more. So yeah, I think that'll do it for today's episode. Like I said up top, please subscribe to the channel. Leave comments, thumbs up, positive reviews. And like I said, you can follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky at Zach Jones Live, ZachJonesLive. But guys, I think that'll do it for today. And until next time, I hope you're enjoying the review. Bye, guys.